Hey guys, Kyle the Death Knight of Anime here, bringing you my review for Black Clover Episode 10. And this was actually a rather interesting episode because it did have it. I think where this episode managed to shine most of all was definitely in the little details of it. Mostly like the biggest thing is the setup in the end of the episode. But I feel that this episode had a lot of small details that really made the episode shine. Honestly. But before I get into that, a real quick note for anyone who's interested out there is that and those who don't know is that Black Clover is getting a video Black Clover is that Black Clover is getting a video game adaptation that is right now being put into production. And honestly, something like this just proves that Shonen Jump really is committed to making Black Clover one of the new big three. And while I do like Black Clover fine, like it's one of those things where I like Black Clover fine enough, but even I kind of have to question why they're trying to push this specific series so hard. And when there are a couple other series I think that definitely are a little more deserving of that time in the spotlight. Like, yeah, I'm just trying to piece it. Like I said, I like Black Clover fine, but I'm trying to piece together as to why Shonen Jump is pushing on this specific series so hard. To be honest with you, I want to assume that the author maybe even though the author has kind of stuck a little close to the shonen tropes, maybe he does have something big planned. I don't know, but we'll have to wait and see. Um, one thing I failed to mention in last week's review, but was the death of that old man who was Magna's friend, father figure. That I failed to mention that little information in last week's review, and I wanted to hold off on talking about it until this week because I wanted to make sure that they didn't pull a fairy tale, Deus Ex Machina fairy tale style by reviving him. And yeah, they pretty much actually killed the old man, and they actually killed the old man. And going forward, I think we need to remember that little detail because, well, Black Clover, it isn't the most revolutionary series. It does have a lot of those standard shonen tropes, and it isn't. It's kind of like, it's honestly like Black Clover is one of those, like, it's a harmless series. There's nothing really wrong with it, to be honest with you. It does stick close to the shonen tropes, but it does. I think where Black Clover really shines is in the smaller details. It's not necessarily in the big grand scheme stuff, but it is in the smaller details of it that I think is where it really shines. Unfortunately, the only problem, unfortunately, I think that's really more of a promotion for the manga than the anime, because with Piero at the helm, we definitely know that the anime still will inevitably suffer Piero's wrath. Like I kind of going in learning that Piero was gonna do the anime adaptation. I knew that we were gonna suffer problems. The Piero was just gonna try and milk their when Piero got the rights to this, I knew that Piero was that the ka-ching was going in their heads, and they were so excited they finally had new and vibrant cow to milk, so to speak. But yeah, like I knew all that going in, but I guess it's one of those things that we just have to have to live with, unfortunately. But like I said, the manga is still vast. The manga is a little bit better with its pacing, guys. So if you want a better experience with Black Clover, definitely go to the manga. But yeah, other than that, yeah, the main point I'm trying to make here is that they killed the old man for sure, and and it is good to know that in these little details is where Black Clover shines for sure. But yeah, and aside from that, we also get a setup for basically the end game of the series, at the end of the episode, with with the Black Bulls taking control of one of those magic stones that the Ice Mage was looking for, and a reveal of the main villain group who has a connection to the Golden Dawn Magic Knights and wants to resurrect their master. Which honestly, like just the whole setup is pretty standard shonen fare, but with the revelation of the Golden Dawn being involved, I do get a feeling we will probably be moving slowly into probably the inner workings and shadow dealings in the show itself. Now, like, we probably will, like, with this whole information that the Golden Dawn is involved with this villain group or whatnot, I think we will probably be getting, like, a lot more we will probably be centralizing a lot of the focus on basically the Clover Kingdom and the castle and whatnot, and what the inner dealings, inner workings, like all the dark stuff that would go on with politics like that. I think we will be getting a lot of focus on that now, just knowing that like the Golden Dawn are involved. So yeah, and but yeah. Also, something interesting happened in this episode, which is we got characterization on Asta near the end, and one thing that's really interesting is that I actually felt anger at the fact that the Ice Mage and his goons decided to basically commit suicide. Yeah, they actually committed suicide. That's kind of dark in itself, but they decided to commit suicide rather than face their punishment. And what's so interesting about that is if it was Naruto or any other shonen protagonist, I'm not just saying Naruto would do this thing. I'm saying any shonen protagonist we've known of in the past had basically seen this, they definitely would have felt remorse or sadness at the fact that they didn't value their own lives, so to speak. But here, Asta's just angry at the fact they didn't face the consequences of their actions and he refuses to forgive them for it. So I think if there's anything we can kind of take away from that little tiny bit of characterization we got from Asta, I think it's that Shonen Jump is trying to kind of move away from their trope from the trope of their main characters being all forgiven, all forgiving, all forgiving God, all forgiving and all forgiving God, all forgiving characters who have the Jesus mentality, so to speak, who will basically die for everyone's sins type mentality. I think Shonen Jump is trying to move a little bit away from that, but yeah, I think just a little note to make there because I like I said, Shonen Jump is moving away from this, and I have seen kind of that mentality a bit in a character like Izuku from My Hero Academia, for instance. But it is good to know that in this current era of Shonen Jump is at least trying to make a small type of change almost. But yeah, it is interesting to note that for sure. And one cool little detail I like in this episode is how Magna mentions pretty much that as a fire mage, he has the best chance of winning against the villain's ice magic, which whether you see it as a good thing or a bad thing does mean that this world kind of operates on their on standard elemental law, almost like an MMORPG. Then again, knowing that they use the term mana to describe the source of their power, I guess it was kind of already a bit of a tip off. But it is good to know that in terms of like the weaknesses of magic in this world and whatnot, the weaknesses and strengths of the magic, that they are trying to operate on the standard strength and weakness of the powers here in this world. And I think that's one thing I think we take for granted is kind of the simplicity almost. Like this the way Magna described how his fire magic can the way Magna described his fire magic can actually be effective against the guy's ice magic. That is actually a very simplistic way of looking at it, and I don't really mind the simplicity in that. I think it's actually kind of neat almost. But yeah, and one thing I really, really 100% liked in this episode is how it wasn't because of Asta alone that the villain was defeated. It took the combined teamwork of all three of them, Asta, Magna, and Noel, to bring him down, and how each of them kind of contributed something to the defeat. Magna's fire to weaken him, Noel's water magic to shield their teammates, and Asta delivering the final blow, but only by deflecting Magna's fire spell was he able to even defeat them to begin with. So yeah, it is. I do like how it's one of those things where because it was a teamwork effort, I can kind of forgive. I can kind of forgive them. I can kind of forgive the defeat pretty easily. Them defeating a powerful guy like that pretty easily, to be honest with you. As long as it isn't just the main character alone who's facing him one on one and winning, I'm happy as long as there's some kind of help or some kind of team effort going on here in order to defeat a character. So yeah, and final thing, like one moment that really kind of also on a side note, one moment that really kind of had me giggling like an idiot almost is where Noelle saves Magna using her water magic, and acts all smug about it, but inwardly her thoughts were excited about being able to control her magic now. Like honestly, like again, I guess this is making another Naruto comparison. I'm sorry, but she basically had a Sakura moment from early Naruto. Although I don't know will be quite as annoying as Sakura, but that's here nor there. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much my review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Death Night of Anime, signing off. Later, guys.